In this video number 17, we are going to discuss the deficient demand and excess demand, their impact on the economy, and remedy to correct the situation of deficient demand and excess demand. Now, what was deficient demand? Deficient demand is when the aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply at full employment level of income. Full employment here would mean that there is no involuntary unemployment and that those who are willing and able to work at the prevailing wage rate are all employed, and that all factors of production are fully employed. So that is what was meant by full employment level of income. Now when you look at the graph, we find after plotting income and output on the x-axis and AD and AS on the y-axis, AS is a 45-degree line which is also equal to income, and this is the AD curve. The point where AD curve meets the AS curve, we called it equilibrium because at this point AD is equal to AS. So this is a situation of full employment when all the resources are fully used. The output being OQ. Any change in this equilibrium would bring about a change in income, output, and employment levels. Let's try to understand what happens when there is a condition for a change in AD and AS. Now if you look at this graph, a point F on this AD curve shows full employment. Now this represents a situation of deficient demand and a deflationary gap. In this graph, OQ is the full employment level of income and output. For the economy to be at full employment equilibrium, the aggregate demand should be equal to the full employment level of income and output, that is FQ, which is equal to OQ. Since point F lies on the 45-degree line here. F lies on the 45-degree line. However, the actual aggregate demand is GQ. G is here. GQ, which is less than FQ. This results in a situation of deficient demand here and the resulting deflationary gap, which is created due to deficient demand, and this deflationary gap is represented by FG, the difference in these 2 points, the deflationary gap. So what is deflationary gap? It is the amount by which the actual aggregate demand falls short of the level of aggregate demand required to establish the full employment equilibrium. To correct the situation of deficient demand, the aggregate demand must be increased by an amount equal to deflationary gap, that is FG. So this will move the economy to full employment equilibrium at point F. So deficient demand arises when equilibrium level of income is less than full employment level of income and AD is less than AS. This results in a deflationary gap and an underemployment equilibrium. Now we must always remember that the deflationary gap lies right to the AS curve, on the right hand side of the AS curve. This deficient demand results in a deflationary gap and underemployment equilibrium. The impact of this would be a decline in the income, output, as well as employment. A decline in income and output and employment. Therefore, there would be a fall in general price level. What does this mean? Why a general fall in the price level is because the supply over here is greater than the demand. When supply is more, inventory stock piles up, and to clear the stock, there should be a fall in the price level. So that is what is deflation. Now, how do we correct this situation? The government brings about a fiscal policy, that is the government expenditure and taxation policy. Here it either increases the government expenditure. What do we mean by increase in government expenditure? It means that the government would increase its own expenditure and bring about projects like like construction of dams or roads, etc. Or it would decrease the taxes, both direct taxes and indirect taxes. A decrease in taxes would mean more money in the hands of the people, that is more money for disposal. And hence, when there is more income or more money, the aggregate demand would increase. The other one is the monetary policy, which is brought about by the RBI in order to increase the money supply in the market. The RBI does this using its quantitative tools, that is by reducing the rates, the bank rate, or reduce the SLR, statutory liquidity ratio, reduce reverse repo rate, reduce cash reserve ratio, reduce repo rate, and also to reduce margin requirements on loans. It would also purchase government securities in the open market. These are some of the points, the quantitative tools that we have already discussed in the banking chapter, that is functions of the central bank in unit 2. So that is how the deflationary gap or the deficient demand is handled or corrected. Now here is a problem with some of the students who said that they don't get their notification whenever the video is uploaded. So when you subscribe for the channel, don't forget to press the bell icon. Only then you get notification whenever the video is uploaded.